Last night, there was a debate in Virginia, and Winsome Sears, when I woke up this morning, Robert, all the local media was talking about was Abigail Spanberger's response on Jay Jones. He is a massive anchor on the entire ticket. I got to believe at some point we're 20 something days from the election. She's got to cut bait with this guy if she doesn't want to get pulled down underneath with him.
Well, good luck cutting bait with that guy because it's kind of the same problem when everybody kept saying, well, if Biden doesn't run, who's going to run? They didn't have a choice. They had to run her. It was her turn. And they could not risk alienating the black vote. Well, guess what? She's not going to risk alienating the black vote in Virginia because she's dead without it.
I wish national Republicans would come in here and dump $10 million on this and say all the Democrats that are on the ticket have endorsed this guy. Zero of the Democrats on the ticket, whether it's a statewide candidate or a House of Delegates candidate, none of these people have said this guy should drop out. They support him.
All right, guys, it is Friday. We've made it through the entire work week, and we have a lot going on. Trump had that epic cabinet meeting yesterday. I told you guys, I love those cabinet meetings. And he's headed to Israel to celebrate and recognize the bringing home of the hostages and this big Hamas deal. Huge deal. I think even Democrats acknowledge that you can't have TDS and not give Trump credit for what they did. And the unorthodox approach that he continues to take and get results. No, he won't get the credit in the mainstream media, but that's not the point. He is headed to Israel, I think, speaking at the Knesset. This is going to be huge. That does make me bring up the fact that he got snubbed by the Nobel Peace Prize, which I know logistically, these guys should have, for the brand, just said, hey, we're having 2 this year, or we're going to announce whatever it is. But like the idea that this historic achievement occurred and you're like, oh, well, technically we had decided, like, dude, if you're the Nobel Peace Prize Committee, step up your game. This was a embarrassment. So much so that the winner, her name is Maria Corina Machado. She is the opposition leader in Venezuela, obviously done a lot to call out human rights and bring out peace there. She dedicated the award that they gave her to Trump, saying, wow, this is a guy who really gets it. Unbelievable. It's so funny because there's a guy who put it out on Twitter. It's day 10 of the shutdown, and President Trump has a better time negotiating and getting peace with Hamas than he does with Democrats. There's something interesting to say that with him. And by the way, last night, New York Attorney General Letitia James indicted by a federal grand jury for mortgage fraud and bank fraud and all this stuff because of lying about an investment property being a primary home. Listen, I've talked to a few lawyers about this. This one, I think, sticks. They have her dead to right. It's going to be unbelievable. Today, though, a massive polling update. Our good buddy, Robert Cahaly of the Trafalgar Group, is here talking about President Trump's image, what we're going to get. Then Brent Buchanan from Cygnal with the latest on the Dem fallout and the Dem spiral downward in Virginia, a little insight into New Jersey as well. We're going to break that all down. By the way, we've got a great deal coming up next week. Winsome Earle-Sears, the Republican nominee for governor, will be here on Monday. Senator Eric Schmidt and Glenn Beck here later next week as well. Unbelievable. And I tell you, it's Friday. Always appreciate the folks who I want to shout out for. It turns out we can have fun and actually be funny. Maybe I should take Jimmy Kimmel's job. Not like that. In case you missed our rant, here are some of the comments from last week. Oh my God, Sean, this is what Cop Mama said. These two have nailed it. That was Sean Farish and Elsa Kurt, that little debate we had. It was hysterical. A lot of great comments. That's funny. You're both great. Thank you guys for doing that. Remember, if you're listening to the audio version because you like, maybe working out or driving with it, thank you for doing that. Continue to give us 5 stars on Apple and Spotify. And if you are listening to the video version, go do that as well. We've got another great rant dropping this weekend. Hit subscribe and notification on all your platforms. Before I get into it, though, you guys know this. I love to snack, and these Masa Chips are amazing. Let me tell you, I know a lot of the food that we eat, it used to be cooked in tallow. No more. All the seed oils. Masa Chips, though, 3 ingredients. It is unbelievable. They've got salt, organic corn, and beef tallow. That's it. That's why they taste great. They're amazing. They're much better for you. So if you're looking for a crunchier, sturdier, better tasting chip that's Maha approved, you've got to try Masa Chips. And I'm telling you, you can go with the original, the white, the blue, the lime, the habanero, the churro. I love them all. The lime, I love the lime chips. They're great. You ready to give them a try? Go to Masa, M-A-S-A, masachips.com/Sean. Use code Sean for 25% off. I'm telling you, if you're a first timer, Try the variety pack. That's what I did. I love them all. MasaChips.com/Sean. Use code Sean for 25% off as well. Unbelievable. You're never going to forget it. This is a great thing. Order now. Get the variety pack. Trust me when I tell you this. All right, before I forget, my good buddy Leo Grillo, he's does such amazing work with animals. It's the world's largest no-kill sanctuary, not a shelter. What he has built in Delta Rescue is nothing short of amazing. I love this guy and the work that he does to help dogs, cats, you name it, horses, any animals that are abused, neglected, abandoned, that need help. He takes care of them for life. It's the world's largest no-kill sanctuary, Leo Grillo reminds me all the time. And I'm telling you, they have no USAID or government grants. It's solely on the contributions of people like me and you. Somebody the other day said, Sean, I sent in a contribution to Leo and I dedicated to you. That warms my heart. I've made a personal contribution with my own money. Go to deltarescue.org to support the amazing work there. If you are so inclined, check out that estate planning kit and think about helping make Delta Rescue an enduring mission. Go to deltarescue.org. Thank you for your support of the great work that Leo Grillo is doing. Without further ado, I want to bring in the good buddy of the show, Robert Cahaly, the president of the Trafalgar Group. Robert, welcome back to the program. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to be here, sir.
Okay, so big deal for Trump, big victory in the Middle East. Generally speaking, when you see things like this, I've never been a big believer that foreign policy wins, as big as it is, just to be clear, have a huge effect on approval ratings. Is this different because of the magnitude of it, or do you expect this to just kind of short-term accolades, but not long-term approval rating result?
Yeah, I expect it to be a short-term approval rating bump, but it's just like anything else. I mean, it's one of those things where people are used to things coming and go in the Middle East, and they don't really believe. It's hard for them to be convinced that it's actually. I mean, the longer it lasts, maybe if something significant happens in addition to this, but I think there will be a short-term bump, but I don't expect it to be long-term.
Um, the other big thing, obviously, is this shutdown and like who's, quote, winning the shutdown, which I know for a lot of people they find offensive when you put it in those terms, because these are real people's lives that are being affected if you're a federal employee or contractor or military member. But when you look at overall, based on history, what shutdowns have done to one party or another, how do you see this thing playing out right now based on history?
Well, I think that right now the mainstream media still gets to conduct the narrative. I find it ironic that, uh, and almost any other thing, whether it's somebody trying to get on the Supreme Court or some major issue, the place is flooded with ads. So where is the spending to counteract the mainstream media narrative and put forth the narrative that we see on conservative media about the shutdown is about healthcare for illegal aliens? I mean, why are the airways not covered with ads for that? I don't understand why people are holding back on that spending, because that's going to have a tremendous impact on the upcoming elections, and there's just no reason. I mean, why are you holding your fire? They should be shooting.
So if you got this Trump super PAC, they've got like a couple $100 million. If they said to you, Robert, we're out there, we're doing all these interviews, we're doing all this stuff, it's not moving the needle, you would tell them what?
I'd say spend a little bit of money putting your narrative out there, and especially put Schumer out there with his quote about winning the shutdown. I mean, it's just so perfect. I mean, the ad writes itself. But you've got to counteract the mainstream media narrative, because you just spend 10 minutes watching any of that, and they completely paint the shutdown differently, like it's about taking health care from babies. I mean, it really is amazing how they get to do their narrative unanswered, and I just think it should be answered.
When you think about the messaging war, right? The Republicans are like, hey, open the government back up. You Democrats have always said that this is your position. We should never hold the government hostage. And then we'll have your discussion. Are they messaging this right?
Oh, I think the messaging is absolutely perfect. I don't have no problem with the messaging. It's just the fact that the messaging is only going as far as fair media coverage will take it.
So when there's a current move among several people and members of Congress, whatever, that said, hey, military members are not getting paid. We should pass the defense appropriations bill as a standalone bill, force the Democrats to do that. And in Washington, I've read a bunch of like, which side would benefit from this? I don't see how that hurts Republicans. Like, there are people that say it takes their leverage away. Paying the military, as far as I'm concerned, would be seen as a smart move, and then keep narrowing the list of what's left to fund in the government, right?
Absolutely. But here's the question. Uh, are the Democrats going to be wise to this and continue to block it?
Right.
Maybe I don't understand enough about how this works, but why this can't be like that, with the 50% threshold? Not sure how you get that. I thought we had, there were two of those this year. And in this, I mean, shouldn't there be a second one? It just, as long as you got the 60 vote threshold, that they can block it. And not sure they would, but no, I think it's a very smart idea.
So that they call that the nuclear option, which is basically saying, hey, on these votes, we're going to only require a 50 vote option. Thune keeps saying, well, if they do it to us, we'll do it. If we did that to them, they'll do it to us. I don't sound like an 8-year-old in this, but they started it. They did this with judges' votes. Why? I mean, to your point, why not just do this? Why not tell Thune, pull the trigger, fund the government, put the Democrats on defense?
I understand what the rationale is, and you don't want to take away the power of the filibuster. You want to outmessage them.
Chuck Schumer is hurting real Americans for his own political survival. I'm going to say that again. Chuck Schumer is hurting real Americans for his own political survival. If you're a service member who's not getting a paycheck, it's because Chuck Schumer has to appease the Marxist. Cut and simple. It's plain and simple. Shame on you, Chuck. Every Senate Democrat who's going along with this. You lack the moral fortitude to do the right thing.
And that's why I think that they should be out messaging them, and that message should be in the mainstream media. But if you can pass the military thing, I think that would make a big difference. And it's like, if we could get to the point, I know that the different appropriations bills are broken down certain ways, but get to that point of like passing appropriations bill, like you said, until just like the stuff they care about is up, that would be, I think it'd be a very effective tactic, because the next thing is, they're going to they're going to fight against any funding that involves ICE, but I don't see them standing up to the military.
I agree. That, to me, forced their hand on this stuff. The issue that comes once we open the government back up is going to be healthcare. Premiums are going to go up if nothing's done, if we don't extend these subsidies. That's a fact. There's a lot of Republicans that argue, well, we shouldn't have passed these COVID subsidies anyway. And there's a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse. If you were advising the House Republicans or the Senate Republicans, how do you message and handle the healthcare debate after we open the government? What would it be?
Well, what I've heard, and I've seen a few people use this example, talking about the fact that we are providing, healthcare subsidies for people who are not in poverty, who literally don't need to be getting, even, you look at Medicare or Medicaid, excuse me. Medicaid is being given to so many people. I mean, you could fund the subsidies if you got rid of the Medicaid going to people who are not actually eligible for Medicaid under the old rules.
Yeah. You and I, the last time we spoke, talked about how so many of the legacy polling outlets are broken, and you guys were forming this new consortium that was much more reliable, for lack of a better word. Where does that stand right now?
Well, we just announced 3 new members, in addition to obviously the Trafalgar Group, Insider Advantage, uh, the Big Data Poll, and Rasmussen, Quantis, Susquehanna, and John McLaughlin polling have all come into the group. So we're now up to 7 members. So we're continuing to look at other quality polls and polling companies that have a good record of accuracy, and we'll be continuing to add new members.
And what's the threshold? Is it the methodology that's used?
Nope. That's the thing. That's the one thing that we don't do. It is not our business how you get there. It is the fact that you are consistently, publicly, have an error rate that is, below the standard error rate for all the other groups. And it's not one of those things that it's hard to grasp. It's like, this is results oriented. I mean, that is one of the things that is wrong with the way the other polling organizations do it, is they get all into your business about how do you do, because they want to criticize how you do it. It's like they have a recipe, and even if your chicken soup sucks, they won't, if you don't use their recipe, they're not going to recognize you. They're not focused on how good the chicken soup is.
I like the analogy. Um, Here's the thing that I found fascinating is when I think about what the president's done, especially in the last, week or so, um, barring the government shutdown. When you look at the people that are part of your consortium now, is there a big difference between his favorability that you guys see versus what a lot of the outliers do? Because I look at some of these guys who are like, he's got 30% approval rating. And I'm like, that's just doesn't pass the smell test. Like
Yeah.
anecdotally, people that I know
And
didn't like
every
Donald
poll
Trump.
that says that, you're going to find one of two things. One, the polling results they have, especially even if you just look at 2024, their polling in 2024 was way off. And generally, their polling is way off. Or worse yet, they don't have the guts to put anything public, and they just do polling on approval ratings, but they don't poll elections near elections. Like, that's the smart kid who tells you how smart he is, but he seems to always get sick the day of the test.
My buddy Seth Keshel does a lot of analysis on voter registration and continues to show a lot of patterns where all of these states are becoming redder. Democrats are losing share as well. When you see that, how do you guys factor that into how you guys poll?
We don't do it by registration because what somebody, I mean, when you look at people's party registration versus what they self-identify as, what you'll find is their self-identify is much more related to where they actually are. And you see, we also have a lot of states in this country that do not register by party. And so the best way to do it is the self-identification. What do you see yourself as?
Right.
Because that is a much more accurate reader. Because there are tons of places I can think of, Louisiana, for example. There's a lot of folks that they don't actually until recently have partisan primaries. So people would register as Democrat, never bothered to switch over because there was no need to, and yet they've been voting Republican since Reagan.
Yeah. Well, I also think of a state like mine in Virginia, we don't have party registration. Or
Right.
to your point, like I might have registered when I was 18 as a Republican or a Democrat, and at 40, I might have changed my registration, but I now believe, in one party or another. So I get it. And that's why it's important for people to
Yeah,
understand that.
because change your registration requires you make an actual effort. And the thing about it is, and this is why I have a beef with so many of these polling organizations that are so focused on people who are hyper political. I love the ones who use panels. I mean, how into politics you have to be to say, "Oh, I'd like to be on a polling panel." No, you don't represent the average Joe at all. The average Joe isn't going to say, "I feel like I'm actually more of a Republican now. I'm going to switch my registration." If he doesn't have to vote in a primary, they're not gonna.
Yeah.
So let's focus on that lowest denominator, which is and focus on average people, because average people win elections, and people who are hyper partisan don't change their minds.
When you think about a few weeks back, the Democrats felt like a scent. They were going to win New Jersey, which they always pretty much do, or not, but generally do. So that was, and then Virginia, same thing. They thought they were going to sweep all of the constitutional offices in Virginia. I feel like the tide has changed in both states. I feel like Jack Ciattarelli is going to pull a win out in New Jersey, and I actually continue to believe all three candidates will win in Virginia.
Well, we did released a poll. I think it was last week in Virginia, and we had them all within striking distance. And she Sears had closed to just 5 points, which was the closest poll that had been released in the last 6 months, and that was all before our little scandal there. And so since the scandal happened, and the fact that Spanberger won't call him to drop out of the race, I think is filtering up. And if they do a good job of pointing out that no, this person who tells you just how independent she is, and how she puts Virginia first and isn't worried about party, which is kind of the way she's gotten reelected to Congress, is presenting herself as beyond party. If she won't call on him to drop out after she was one of the first people in line to criticize Northam because he was on the way out, so he was lame duck. Well, if they can make that case against her, they can use this and leverage. I mean, we saw what happened in North Carolina where they won other offices based on the governor. There's no reason that's not going to happen there. We're doing some tracking polling, and we may be having some results to share in the next in the next day or so, or maybe Monday. That I feel like you're going to see that race has gotten tighter.
But I got to believe, in my analysis, Jay Jones, the Democrat running for attorney general, whose text came out about this, last night there was a debate in Virginia, and Winsome Sears, when I woke up this morning, Robert, all the local media was talking about was Abigail Spanberger's response on Jay Jones. He is a massive anchor on the entire ticket. I got to believe at some point we're 20 something days from the election. She's got to cut bait with this guy if she doesn't want to get pulled down underneath with him.
Well, good luck cutting bait with that guy because it's kind of the same problem when everybody kept saying, well, if Biden doesn't run, who's going to run? They didn't have a choice. They had to run her. It was her turn. And they could not risk alienating the black vote. Well, guess what? She's not going to risk alienating the black vote in Virginia because she's dead without it.
See, this is why I love you, because I had been trying to figure out why isn't she's got to realize this, but she needs that vote. So brilliant. This is why the Trafalgar group leads the way in so many areas, because you guys think about these angles that I think most people, I got to give you credit again. Robert Cahaly, thank you for being with us on a Friday. Always appreciate your insights. And I feel good about these races, man. I'm looking forward to keep an eye. By the way, go if you're interested. We'll keep refreshing the Trafalgar Group page. I want to see these Virginia results either over the weekend.
And we'll have New Jersey in the next week or so too.
All right, then okay. Let's book it. You're coming back, Robert. Thanks a lot. Have a great weekend.
Yes, sir. You too. Take care.
All right, guys, amazing there. Now for the latest on Virginia in particular, the latest numbers out on the Dems spiral downward. Brent Buchanan of Cygnal's got it for us. We're getting these things exclusively. Check it out. Brent, welcome back to the show. I'm excited for this conversation because we've got two big races and you guys are in the mix in both.
Yeah, it's actually looking pretty darn good in both of them, especially compared to 2 weeks ago.
I know. This is why I love this. This is a perfect Friday conversation. The funny part about this is of all of the people, you guys are literally are polling for this Virginia Attorney General race. And I've got a lot of thoughts on this because I got to believe the entire ticket's getting dragged down, but you just got out of the field. You guys are the go-to people right now when it comes to Virginia. So let's just start. The first question that you guys address in your polling, there's a lot of concern about when people vote because the question is, Virginia voting started late September. And so how many people have actually already voted according to your poll?
That is a great question and one that we spend a lot of time on in Virginia. I mean, I think if this year is a great example as to why we should get rid of really early voting. We would not have a Senator John Fetterman were it not for really, really early voting. And I think when we look at this Virginia AG's race, it would be even better if there weren't several 100,000 votes already banked. And so, we're looking at anywhere. Our poll has it at 13.5% because we're going off of folks who have told us that. When you look at the file, the voter file, as those get returned every night from the different counties to the voter file vendors, it could be upwards of 15 or a little bit more. There are areas of the state where it's higher, somewhere it's lower, but there's still plenty of runway, which is the really encouraging part. That even though you've got, let's just say 15% of folks that have already put their vote in, prior to the scandal coming out, there's still a lot of runway left, and a lot of people who need to see the message. That was really shocking to me in the poll.
All right, so the generic ballot. The next question on your poll: who just random Republican versus random Democrat? Where does it stand, and how has it changed?
So if we go to right after Labor Day, the Democrats had a 7-point lead on this question. And for those of you who are normal and don't look at polling all day long like Sean and I do, the generic ballot means you're not putting a name to it. For your House of Delegates race, because that's what they call their legislature there that's up right now, you want the Democrat or the Republican. And it's a really good indicator for us as we look at how does that compare to these named races like AG, like governor and others. And so that was a Democrat 7-point lead coming out of Labor Day. And then we're now sitting at that being only a 5-point lead, a 4.5-point lead. And so that's a really good movement that you don't traditionally see environmental movements like that. And I think that we're actually catching the beginning of a trend in this data.
Okay. So let's get in. We'll start. I know the top of the ticket is the governor, then the lieutenant governor, then the AG, but you guys are really focused. We'll get to both of those other races, but all the attention, all the media is focused on this race between Republican incumbent Attorney General Jason Miyares and Democrat Jay Jones, who technically is a former delegate, but that's a whole nother story. The guy basically just dropped out of nowhere. I don't know that we need to get into that. Walk us through how the race has changed since you were in the field last.
Yeah, these AG races tend to be pretty low name ID affairs. And what I mean by that is that even come election day, a large chunk of voters don't know who the candidates are for AG. Even in a state like Virginia that has Wild West campaign finance, where anybody and everybody can give as much money as they want to these races. And so going back to right after Labor Day, Jason Miyares had a more favorable image slightly than Jay Jones did. Both of them had about 21% unfavorability. So there wasn't much daylight between the two of them from an image perspective of how voters viewed them and how many voters knew of the two candidates. Well, that changed. That changed significantly in this poll that we just conducted this week. We started on beginning of the week. And now Jason Miyares has really increased his name ID. He's at 37% favorability. But the real story is this Jay Jones. And he's a bad dude. And voters are starting to see this. He went from 20% unfavorability to 44% unfavorability. And let me tell you, you don't see numbers like that, even in major spending races. I mean, I'm involved in some races last year and this coming year where you would see millions of dollars get spent attacking a candidate and their unfavorability would move 7 points. This dude more than doubled his unfavorability. And I really think the bulk of that was simply this earned media story of the text messages.
Okay, so that's the unfavorability. What about the head-to-head? How has that changed Miyares versus Jay Jones? Like head-to-head from where you were last time to where we are now?
Yeah, so let's take it in the context of the generic ballot, where we saw that go from 7 to 4.5. So was that 2.5 points of environmental movement that occurred? And but this race saw a lot more movement. So we had Jason down by 3, the Republican Jason Miyares down by 3 coming out of Labor Day, and then this week that shifted to head by 2. I mean, we like to round numbers and then do the math, but if you take the tenths of a percent and do the math, he actually moves 6 points in that approach to it, which is unheard of. You just don't see that type of movement, especially in a purple to blue state like Virginia. And
by the way, that's before Miyares dropped like his new ads, right? So, I mean, this is just off what we call earned media. That's the kind of stuff that you see on your TV, your newspaper, random websites. That's before any real ads get behind it, right?
Correct.
Okay. So, cause I had a lot of people when you guys posted that head-to-head first on Twitter, he said to me, gosh, don't you think it should have moved more? And my answer was, yeah, but remember, like it could be cresting and you're just stopping and taking a snapshot. I got to believe that it's gotten worse for him. For Jay Jones, the Democrat, and that if you actually every day, I got to believe that Miyares is probably pulling out even further.
Yeah, and Winsome Sears, the Republican candidate for governor in Virginia, is also running ads with that same message and then essentially tying Spanberger, the Democrat, to Jay Jones, which is it's the exact strategy we need. I mean, I wish national Republicans would come in here and dump $10 million on this and say all the Democrats that are on the ticket have endorsed this guy. 0 of the Democrats on the ticket, whether it's a statewide candidate or a House of Delegates candidate, none of these people have said this guy should drop out. They support him.
I'm glad you said that, Brent, because I mean, to the extent that anyone cares what I have to say, and I do live in the Commonwealth here, that I've been screaming from the rooftops, you got a gift, open the gift and just ride it. Don't talk about anything else, nothing else. I saw an ad that Miyares put out about his driving, he's going 116 and on I-64. I'm like, no, nothing else for the next 20 something days. All you should talk about is this guy's fitness for office.
Yeah, and I do think that 116, because if you look at what would have happened to you or me if we were driving 116 miles an hour, we'd be spending a year in jail.
Sure. Fair enough. And I get that. And there's a whole side story about how he then had to do community service and he did it for his own political action committee. I get it. But I'm telling you, when you've got somebody sending text saying they want to assassinate the Speaker of the House and then watch his wife hold his dead child in her hands, like, you don't need anything else. Drive that every day, all day.
And on top of that, so I'm not a lawyer, so don't hold me to this, but I was told by somebody, by a lawyer, that had this been a domestic situation, so let's say that was him and a girlfriend, and instead of the target being the Republican Speaker of the House, if he said he was going to do that to her, she said stop 3 times and he kept going. That would be jail time for him if this was a domestic situation.
By the way, that's
what needs to get out there. You got to contextualize the story too, on top of the fact that he's just a complete dirtbag.
100%, because I know all the news was, hey, he made this threat against Todd Gilbert, the former Speaker of the House. Okay, that's bad. Then to your point, then the second point is, right, there's more to the text, which is, I want to see his wife hold his dead child in her arms, right? That's sick. And then to your point, what's happening in between is this delegate that he's texting.
A Republican delegate,
Carrie Corner, is saying, stop. She's basically like, hey, dude, shut up. I'm trying to help you, right? And he's like, no. I have more offensive things to say. I'm not done.
Yeah, it's disgusting when a Republican should never stand up and say we need to tone it down on both sides. This is not a both sides problem. And
100%.
Democrats have proved that over the last 4 weeks.
I know. And frankly, as far as I'm concerned, not just Virginia, but every Democrat, every Republican should go after every Democrat and say, you've been silent on this issue. You didn't say anything. You talk about both sides. You talk about the temperature being down, and you've been silent. We should make every Democrat in this country own this issue.
I was getting ready this morning and thinking back to when I started running races 20 something years ago. And every general election I ran, the Democrats were labeling us extreme. And you know what? To middle of the road voters, we probably were considered extreme to them. And I was pondering that this morning. I'm like, I'm no longer in the party of extreme. It's the Democrats who are completely extreme now.
Oh, and by the way, what was quote unquote considered extreme back then was he wants to cut taxes 65%. It was policy. It wasn't, I want to shoot you and assassinate you. That wasn't the debate. We were debating policy 20 years ago, Brent. I remember my first race. It was like, you want to increase the size of government more than I do. I want to do less. Those are policy differences, not I want to kill you and your child.
100%.
All right. You mentioned Winsome Sears. She is the current lieutenant governor, candidate for governor of Virginia. She's running against Abigail Spanberger, former Democratic congresswoman. Talk about the position of that race. Where was it and where is it now?
She was in our data in September, early September. She was down by 7. Other polls had her down by more. And now we only have her down by 4. So this Jay Jones texting scandal is hurting Democrats up and down the ticket. So we had Spanberger lose 1 point, and we had Winsome pick up 2 in a race where Abigail Spanberger is just shellacking Winsome Sears on television and on YouTube. I watch television on streaming services. I cannot turn on a YouTube. My children cannot turn on a YouTube video at our house to watch something funny without an ad coming on to attack Winsome Sears. And so all that, considering that she still was able to improve, and this shows the juice that this issue has behind it if Republicans will fund it. That's the $1 million question, right? How much are they willing to come in and push this over the top? Because I keep referring to this as the Terry McAuliffe moment of this cycle. Terry McAuliffe was the Democratic nominee, the former governor, taking on Glenn Youngkin last time. And he started saying parents don't have any rights when it comes to the education of their children. And Glenn Youngkin rode that thing like a bullet train to victory. Yep. I just think Republicans need to do this again. But let's kind of round out the 3 constitutional offices, because this is one that I thought was interesting. John Reed is the Republican nominee. He's former radio talk show host, WRVA, out of Richmond. His dad was involved in Republican politics, so very big Henrico County
family down there in the middle of Virginia. And then the Democrat, her name is Ghazala Hashmi. Is that right?
Your guess is as good as mine on
No,
that one.
I just don't know if I'm Ghazala Hashmi. Tell us where that race is and where it is now.
Well, I think this one is less about where it was because it was so under the radar. Neither of these candidates had name ID at all in September. So this is one that I don't necessarily, we had it tied, but we had really high undecideds in that, which makes a lot of sense when you consider neither candidate had any name identification with voters. This race is within 2.5 points and to the Democrats' advantage currently. But to me, it shows that you've got these really strong coattails on this issue up and down the ticket. I mean, we do a lot of work in the House of Delegates races too, and you're beginning to see improvement there environmentally also in those races. And so, if you'd asked my opinion a month ago of where these Virginia races stood from, governor all the way down to House of Delegates, I would have said precarious, and now I would say encouraging.
The thing that I found interesting in that, just to give the audience a sense, when you polled the lieutenant governor's race in September, the first week of September 7th, you had the race pegged at 44.3 to 44.2. Like statistically, I wash, right? Now, though, John Reed, I get it. I mean, really hasn't lost it. He's still at 44. He's technically at 44.1, but I assume statistically you guys would call that a complete wash. But here's the kicker. The Democrat, whose name I still can't pronounce, Ghazala Hashmi, has actually picked up 2 points. She went from 44.2 to 46.5. Is that a statistical wash, or should we read anything into that?
I think you're just starting to see Democrats pick their person because it's the Democrat. That's not movement in the race per se. That's just a solidifying as we get closer to the election day. And the way I try to look at it is not just the margin between candidates and not just the movement between their ballot share last time and their ballot share, a month later in the poll that we finished up on the 7th of this month, just a couple days ago. It is where are these races stacking up against each other? So we've got Spanberger under 50 now at 49. You got Hashmi at 46.5, and then you have Jones at 43.7. So it's really more the comparison of all of them and how do we continue to degrade all of their ballot shares by just simply sharing what they believe, which is they want us dead.
Let me ask you this. When you ask what you guys in the polling world call an informed ballot question, which is not just sort of, hey, do you like Jason Mayaris, but you inform them. You basically say, hey, knowing that Jay Jones said this, you actually help them. The race opens up wider, right? So it suddenly goes to 46.4 to Jason Mayaris to 40. That's a 6-point lead, right? So obvious, it's huge, right? I mean, that's literally a game set match. So is it your belief, let me ask you to flip this for a second. Let's just pretend you're Jay Jones's, you're the Democrats' pollster, and he says, I'm getting killed on this. The more people find out about it, the more they don't like me. Is it go on attack against Jason Mayaris, or is it own your mistake and go on TV and say, hey, I made some foolish texts. They're a huge mistake. That's not who I am. I'm be better. And I want, what would be better to improve his image?
It is the latter. If it were a governor's race, I would say the strategy would be attack. But because it's an attorney general's race, if you're Jay Jones, you come out and say, I screwed up. And I don't want to say pretend it was a joke. I was upset, and that is no excuse. I don't believe that at all. We probably all said things in text that we don't necessarily believe, but I still don't. I'm not going to use that as an excuse, because here's the problem that Jay Jones faces more than anybody else on the ticket right now is undervote. And that is people vote in the gov race, skip the AG race, and then keep moving on down the ballot. And what Republicans on the flip side need to do is ensure that Democrats, at least a certain type of Democrat, one with a heart, that they decide to stay out because they just can't go vote for any of the Democrats on the ticket. We win the AG's race by undervote, but we win all the races by underparticipation. And Democrats or moderates who normally vote Democrat saying, I just can't do it. I can't go vote for anybody on this ticket if they're going to be complicit with that guy.
So you mentioned the House of Delegates. Obviously, that's a big deal right now in Virginia. The state Senate set up, but the House of Delegates is. Democrats currently control that. In what you see in the data, is there a shot that Republicans can take back the chamber there?
Working in legislative races is a totally different ballgame because, as I was talking about name ID earlier for the AG candidates, most of these House of Delegate races, your member of the House of Delegates has better name identification than sometimes the person running for governor who's not currently governor. It's just fascinating how that being that close to the electorate, they know who you are. Everybody knows who their member of the House of Delegates
Really?
is. And it's shocking in these races where money is spent.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know who mine is.
Right.
I'm also a Republican in the People's Republic of Arlington. So,
well, I'm right next door to you. Don't worry. I literally forgot. I used to know who it was, but then they kept making it more and more, and I literally wouldn't know if they knocked on my door right now.
It's also a difference between major metro area and regular Virginia. And in regular Virginia, where most every one of these races are, they do know who their member of the House of Delegates is. They know who the person challenging them is. There's enough money being spent to really make these races salient to voters, sometimes more salient than, pre-text message scandal. I would say most people had a better idea of who was running, who they are, and who they're going to vote for in a House of Delegates race than they did the AG's race, because that's just the nature of the beast of a statewide in a big state compared to these local House of Delegates races. So I frame all of that up to say that there's a really good chance Republicans can hold on to where they are and potentially pick up seats in these races. Now, Democrats are just swamping us in spending. That is the real story here. And I wish every Republican could hear this message, and that is start giving money to Republican candidates in states you don't live in. This is what Democrats do. Democrats from all over the country sit there and wait for these Act Blue text messages or emails to show up to be told who they're supposed to give 5, 10, 15, 50 or more dollars to. And they do it every time one of those text messages or emails shows up. It's why you see these people running in races, a Democrat running in a race who has no business running because it's a deep red seat can raise millions of dollars, because Democrats are willing to fund the campaigns of people who aren't even in their areas, and Republicans are not. And if we're going to compete, if we're going to win these House of Delegates races, people have got to get off their wallet and start donating, even if it's $5, $15, $50 to these races. There are a lot of times, if you go look at the Act Blue records, where somebody will give $20 to every single House of Delegate Democrat running in a competitive race by one click. They just go through and click and donate $20 across, and then you scale that across thousands, tens of thousands, 100,000, millions of Democrats who are doing this, and you see how the Democrats have so much more money than we do. And that's one thing Republicans really have to change, is our culture of giving. Like, great, thank you for voting. You also need to start giving. And if that happens in Virginia, from the governor's race down to the House of Delegates races, it's going to be a really good night for Republicans come November 4th.
Brent, just a ballpark, if you're in a competitive delegate race in Virginia, what's a ballpark budget that they're raising right now?
Millions.
Like 3, 2, 1, what?
Yeah, it depends on the race, but yeah, lower single digit millions. I mean, there are conversations going on of like, how do we get $500,000 over to this race for the Republican or that race, or 3 races, they each need to get $500,000.
I think the delegates in Virginia make like $30,000, and you're spending $3 million on a delegate race. That's insane. Couple more things for you. In your what amazed you? You guys talked about news sources, where people get their news source in this Virginia. What stood out to you?
That's a really good question, and I'm going to pull this up here on my screen just so I can speak to the data. We actually just finished a national survey also, and in this survey, we looked at what was the distribution of people who read or get news from certain locations, and then what is their partisanship? Because this is, and thank you for the endorsement of my forthcoming book, America's Emotional Divide. I have a whole chapter that talks about media fragmentation and how it is driving our total disconnect from each other in politics and issues. So I'm going to take this from the national survey because I've got the data sitting in front of me here. But if you're if you get your news from YouTube, for example, there's a pretty even distribution of how many Republicans versus Democrats get their news from YouTube. And you're going to be shocked that this is younger men who get their news from this source. But if you go to a newspaper, for example, newspaper viewers are way more white, way more educated, way older, and way more Democratic than the electorate as a whole. Same thing for national television news. The people who get their news from ABC, NBC, CBS, and the people who read newspapers are super old liberals. They're those crazy boomers you see in those videos in Portland, playing music to save the world. Those people. But Republicans, they're on social media. We're listening to podcasts. We're getting our news from cable. We're just living in totally different worlds. And that, tying this back to Virginia, what's really interesting to me is that the voter group that I think will help determine this election is non-college educated women. And they're the least likely to have seen anything about the J. Jones text. So, and you're not going to get them by throwing up ads on, the NBC nightly news.
Right.
You're going to get them online. You should be getting them in their text message in the mailbox and other places. But, that's why these campaigns are so darn expensive, is because fewer people pay attention to what's going on in the news. And you got to spend a lot more money to get in front of them than you did 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
Interesting. Last question I want to ask you guys is, I know that you guys have been keeping an eye on that New Jersey race between Jack Ciattarelli, the Republican, and Mikey Sherrill. A lot of stuff coming out of there about how Mikey Sherrill didn't get to walk and graduate with her class at the Naval Academy because of that cheating scandal. Where's the momentum in that race right now, and how close is it?
It's good to be Jack Ciattarelli right now, because the momentum is on his side too. I mean, we went in the field last night with a survey for ourselves in that race. And just looking at the partials, which again, dorky pollster lingo for you, partials are like you hadn't got the full amount of people who've taken the survey, but you're looking at those who have, and then you apply some weighting to get an idea of the direction. And so directionally, this race is within the margin of error. And directionally, both Jack Ciattarelli and Mikey Sherrill have nearly identical name identification. And when you look at the openness to vote for both candidates, and you look at what we call the information flow. So where have you seen, read, or heard anything about either of these candidates, on television, in the mailbox, on your phone, online? And then is that information positive, negative, or kind of a mix of the two? The information flow for Mikey Sherrill is abysmal. Like, she's just taking it on the chin and in the ear and then across the knee and in the toe. She's just getting obliterated right now. And so I think we're going to see even further tightening of that race when the information flow looks that bad for her.
All right. Brent Buchanan, I appreciate you and everyone at Cygnal for what you're doing to keep us in the loop in these final 30 days in these two races. Thanks a lot, and really appreciate you sharing the insight. Congrats on the book, by the way.
Well, thank you. And Republicans, open those pocketbooks and start funding these races in New Jersey and Virginia. And that's parties and individuals.
Will do. All right. Thanks, man. Hey, thanks for subscribing. I got a brand new column at SeanSpicer.com. It's out today. It's free to subscribe. You can't help it. Always share that link with people. I appreciate everything you do. As I mentioned, next week, Monday, Winsome Earle-Sears, the lieutenant governor and current nominee for governor in Virginia. Later in the week, Eric Schmidt and Glenn Beck. Hit subscribe and notifications so you miss nothing, especially our great rant this weekend. Have a good one. I'll see you back here on Monday. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.